we've measured this, but thought,
no,
no, it's just not, in order.
It's currently, one of them is actually doing really accurate.
Start with a bit of an introduction. And then, so do gather around, pull up a chair if that's easier. Bit of an introduction about Telford himself and what he did in the Highlands, which is what I'll be talking about. And then I'm going to be passing over to Alison here, who's come up from the Institution for Civil Engineers from Glasgow this morning on the very early train. And she's going to talk about a bit about why Telford is still revered today, why he is still considered a really important and influential, one of the most influential. This is part of our Arches Experimental Archaeology workshops, and in the perfect world we'd be building a bridge, or we'd be doing something like that, which is what we've done in all the other workshops, but obviously that's not practicable. So today we're going to try to do a lot with source material and try to do a lot of experimentation to try to give an idea about what's there. Thomas Telford was born in 1757, died in 1834. Most of his work up here in the Highlands is dating from the 1790s, when he's employed by the British Fisheries Board and looking about how he can improve the fishing industry up here. And that's mainly harbours, piers, how you can get catches in and out. Then he does such a good job with that the Parliamentary Commissioners for Roads and Bridges have this very ambitious programme, which in fact Telford was involved in the recommending of it, which was to build a road network up here in the Highlands. Before that, up here in the Highlands, you basically couldn't get a carriage on most of the roads. There were tracks, and there was quite a path of them, but carriages weren't feasible on the roads we had. So Telford set out this incredibly ambitious project, which was basically to create this enormous road network. And he did this in basically 20 years. We're really fortunate in that, because this was a government bureaucracy, it is so well documented. So we have the commissioner's reports for every 2, sometimes 1 year, but basically every 2 years while he's working. That gives us an idea about where he's going, what he's doing, what are the problems they're encountering. And these we have here from the library, the original ones. They're on the trolley just behind Tom there. So we have commissioners' reports that allow us to get an idea. We have plenty of his atlas that was published after his death, which is well worth having a look, because it gives us a lot of his plans and the engineering bits behind him. What were the challenges if you think about building roads here in the Highlands? If you just think about just a normal travel, we don't see all the culverts and we don't see all the bridges that are behind. The number of burns, and Telford remarks on this in his work, are just per mile, what's the average number that he's having to go across. So there's a huge amount of needing to do that. We've got lots of these inclines. He tried to level it out, and that created a lot of challenges as well. I'm not sure he succeeded as much as he says he did on that, because some of them are still pretty, if anybody's gone over the Sturry Road, there are some pretty steep inclines on that one as well. So he needed to be able to do bridges, he needed to cope with the Highland climate. And so his road construction was really novel for the time. Main thing he did was insist on ditches, drainage. Something that hadn't been really looked at before, and roads would tend to be, tracks would be built and they would just become impassable. By this time, the military roads by Wade and Caulfield are pretty much impassable. And Telford, over the course of these 20 years, he's repairing those as well. So he has to deal with that. He has to make sure that they don't wash away. He has to work with the repairs. We have a little model constructed yesterday out of how he built his roads and the specifications. We have Xeroxes of those as well. You started out with your stones that had to be less than a hen's egg, and a series of those that you would lay as your foundation. And then you would do gravel up to a certain amount, and he specifies it has to be so many inches on the middle and less on the outside. And it was always, the assumption was that you would replace the gravel, because he realized nothing was going to stay here in the Highland climate. And also he realized that this was not like southern England, in that all you had were your carriages and your people walking. Up here in the Highlands, these roads had to be passable by cattle for the droving. So hence he used gravel that would be replaced.
This year is the 200th anniversary of the Institution of Civil Engineers. It's our 200th birthday. They were looking quite good for it. And Thomas Telford was our first ever president. Our exhibition this year is called Invisible Superheroes, because Thomas Telford was a superhero, and like all civil engineers, most of what he did was invisible to the people that used it every day. You've already heard from Susan some of the things that he did incorporating drainage into roads. Nobody thinks about that. You just go along a road. You don't actually think about how it's built or how it's maintained or how it stays where it is. And that's the same with all the infrastructure he worked on. We just accept that it's there. But he did do some amazing things, and from how he designed things at a time when there weren't design standards that we have today in engineering, he had to do a lot of experimentation to work out what was the best way to do things. And we reap the benefits from that 200 years later. We still do a lot of things the way Thomas Telford would have done them, because he proved that that was the way to go. A lot of things have changed, but a lot of the principles he came up with are still valid these days. And it wasn't just about the technicalities of how you designed things as well. It was about thinking about how you project managed. It was thinking about long-term maintenance, because that was what he said about the roads in Scotland was, yeah, you can build roads in Scotland, but you need to have a programme of maintenance for them, because there's no point in building them and walking away, because they will need re-gravelled every now and then. And that whole mindset of having to think long-term about your infrastructure is what we have to do today as civil engineers. It's not just building it for now, it's building it for the future. And it's all about linking communities. That's what he did. And that's still what civil engineers do today. It's about making sure our communities are all linked, have all the infrastructure they need to have a successful economy, to keep us all bound together. And I think he's just an amazing man. He is a total superhero and a total inspiration to all engineers today. And I'm really glad I got a chance to come up today and to play, basically, because that's what I've got with me today. I've got some toys to come along and play. Telford, as I say, did a lot of things by experimentation, and that's what today's about, is come along, play about, see what you can build, see if you can come up with any fantastic ideas, and maybe we'll be using them in a couple of 100 years. So, enjoy. It's building a balanced cantilever bridge, which is about the method of construction rather than how it's finished. You start from the middle and work your way out, and you have to balance both sides of the bridge. It's magnetic, so it's quite easy, but you have to balance the two sides, because if you don't, it gets rubbly and it flashes and it beeps. If you ever see, you can get all the way across there.
And Telford was also very innovative in some of the things he did. The ones that come to mind are the Caledonian Canal, which obviously is well known, but he also did the minor ones like the Dingwall Canal. We also innovated with the mound near Golspie, where he had to separate, he had to build a big causeway and then separate fresh water from seawater logs. And the third is Bonar Bridge, which is a metal bridge, really innovative at the time, was built in Wales, assembled there, and then brought up in pieces to be assembled at Bonar Bridge. The other one up here in the north is at Kergalty, which still survives. Bonar Bridge, unfortunately, is on its third bridge.
Engineering is actually communication.
Communication.
Yeah, and that is what Telford realised.
Tell me what you do.
So the man himself.
The man himself, he always looks not quite happy, but I suppose he was. And this is the atlas to the life of Thomas Telford.
1838.
1838.
Right. So, and this is in the public library in Inverness.
The public library in Inverness.
Yeah. Which is the,
Let me play. I'll just play.
This is a map of the harbours, the upgraded harbours in Scotland, ranging mostly around the Highlands, most along the Moray Firth and up across Sutherland, although some of them go down into the other coast, the west coast. Virtually all of the local harbours you can go in and you can see the influence of Telford on their upgrades, their extra piers, their entrances, and in some cases the lighthouses.
The angles, it seems to be basically the exact same angle, pretty much. However, this set is 1 degree out from this set. Each cut is just 1 degree out. But that 1 degree of difference over so many cuts, and it no longer works. You end up with a problem there.
With a very wobbly bridge.
and you're a big Telford fan, I can tell. Indeed.
I don't think you could either. But I love you did. Beautiful, elegant, It works.